The snow lay thick over the desolate tundra, a frozen ocean that stretched to the horizon under a sky the color of lead. Somewhere in this white wilderness, the Russian Northern Air Defense Network stood guard, its heart beating in the rhythm of radar sweeps and encrypted radio bursts. Among the most guarded positions in the Arctic Circle, the complex was a layered fortress of steel and silicon. Towering S-400 launchers, the sleek, predatory frames of Pantsir S-1 vehicles, the squat bulk of TOR-M2DT systems with their Arctic camouflage, and the deadly reach of the BUK-M3 hidden behind earthen berms. Together, they formed an invisible wall that no enemy aircraft had breached in over a decade. Captain Andrei Volkov stood in the command trailer, his gloved hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea, his eyes fixed on the green glow of the main radar console. He had served 20 years in air defense, long enough to know that quiet nights like this were illusions. Somewhere out there, an enemy was watching, probing, and waiting. At 0203 hours, the stillness shattered. "Multiple inbound tracks," reported Lieutenant Sokolov, his voice sharp. "Altitude varying, 60 to 80 kilometers, speed, hypersonic." Volkov's heart kicked hard. Hypersonic meant only one thing. The Americans had committed their most advanced strike weapons. "Classification," he demanded. The screen lit up with identification tags, Ghost Hawk drones, RQ-180s, and something else the system couldn't even classify. The Ghost Hawks were stealthy enough to slip past older radars, but their speed tonight was suspiciously slow. Too slow. "Decoys," Volkov muttered. He knew the real strike would come in their shadow. "Wake all crews. Pantsir units, Priority 1 engagement. TOR systems, prepare for close intercepts. BUKs, acquire mid-range targets. S-400, hold until we find the real threat." Outside, engines roared to life. The Pantsir S-1 units swiveled their twin cannons and missile pods toward the black northern sky. TOR-M2DTs rolled forward on their massive snow tracks, their radars spinning. The BUK-M3 batteries powered up, their long-range missiles glinting faintly under the floodlights. At 0206, the first salvo came in, a screaming wave of decoy missiles, each designed to look like a bomber on radar. The Pantsirs opened fire, their 30mm cannons stitching molten lines across the sky. Missiles arced upward, white contrails slicing through the darkness, and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Then the second wave hit, faster, lower, and deadlier. "Hypersonic glide vehicles!" Sokolov shouted. "Targets entering at Mach 6. Volkov's stomach turned. These weren't drones. They were kill weapons, capable of maneuvering at impossible speeds. He barked orders into his headset. "BUKs, fire! S-400, engage with 48 N6 missiles. TORs, prepare for terminal defense." The BUK-M3s thundered, their missiles streaking into the stratosphere. Seconds later, the S-400s joined in, launching their massive interceptors in a deafening roar. Radar screens flickered with kill confirmations, but too many tracks remained. At 0210, disaster struck. One glide vehicle evaded the intercept net entirely, dropping altitude until it skimmed the snow at treetop height. It slammed into the eastern Pantsir battery. The explosion was a white-hot sun that turned the tundra to glass. Volkov felt the shockwave rattle the trailer. "Pantsir II destroyed." Sokolov's voice cracked. Another impact followed, this time on a TOR position. Fire and debris scattered across the snow like dark confetti. The command net filled with shouts and static. But Volkov noticed something strange. These hits weren't aimed at radar sites or missile launchers first. They were hitting the outer defensive line, systematically. Someone had studied their positions in detail. That's when the real attack arrived. A formation of stealth bombers, B-21 Ghost Wolves, rose from below radar coverage, released from submarine-based catapult systems under the Arctic ice. They were already inside the perimeter when the sensors caught them. Range, 40 kilometers and closing. Volkov didn't think. "All S-400 units, fire everything!" 4 S-400 launchers discharged in unison, the missiles carving luminous scars into the sky. 2 Ghost Wolves disintegrated mid-flight, raining fragments over the snow. The third evaded, dropping its payload before being torn apart by a TOR missile. The payloads hit like hammer blows. One strike tore through the western BUK battery, the explosion flipping a launcher onto its side. Another hit severed a communications hub. Smoke choked the command trailer. Red lights pulsed across every panel. Volkov coughed, waving away fumes, and shouted, "Back up comms now. We fight until the last missile." By 02:15, half the network was down. Only one Pantsir, 2 TORs, and a single S-400 launcher remained. Volkov knew they couldn't survive another wave. But retreat was not an option. The Arctic radar station behind them, the nerve center, was counting on them to hold. Through the haze, Volkov spotted something on the tactical display, a narrow gap in their coverage, opened by the destroyed Pantsir battery. Enemy missiles were routing through it toward the radar station. "Not on my watch," he growled. He jumped from the trailer, snow crunching under his boots, and sprinted toward the last Pantsir S-1. Its crew was dead, the vehicle smoldering, but the systems still glowed green. He climbed inside, strapped himself into the gunner's seat, and manually slewed the turret toward the gap. Missiles screamed in. Volkov squeezed the trigger. The 30mm cannons roared, tracers burning through the dark. One missile exploded, then another. He fired the Pantsir's last missile, a perfect hit on the lead warhead. But there were too many. The first warhead struck 50 meters away, flipping the Pantsir onto its side. Volkov's vision blurred from the concussion. He dragged himself upright just in time to see the second missile inbound, too close to intercept. It never hit. From the north, a surviving S-400 interceptor tore through the sky, detonating the missile in a ball of fire. Volkov exhaled, his breath steaming in the frozen air. By 02:20, the battlefield fell silent. Smoke rose from the wreckage of the BUK-M3s, the twisted remains of the TORs, and the gutted Pantsirs. The S-400 stood like a lone sentinel, its last missile spent. Over the command net, the radar station's voice broke through, "Targets eliminated. Perimeter secure." "You held, Captain." Volkov closed his eyes. The cost was staggering. Most of his men were gone, and the Arctic defense line lay in ruins. But the station was safe, and the enemy had been denied their kill. He stood in the snow, lit by the cold blue light of the polar dawn, knowing that history would record the night as the first time the most advanced strike in modern warfare had been broken, not by numbers, but by will.